Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 20 of the Build podcast, and today we'll be going through Nanoc, which is an example of a static site generator. Now if you want to create a blog or even a website and you want control over how much you want to customize or even use some kind of add-ons or preprocessors, I highly recommend you to check out a static site generator such as Nanoc. Now firstly, let's look at the website. Nanoc comes with a very well-documented and explained website. It is a Ruby-based web publishing system for medium-sized websites, as the documentation mentions. So we'll be referring a lot to the documentation to build our website, which will be a blog. In the introduction to Nanoc documentation, it goes through thoroughly how you can create a website and also customize it using hard-coded Ruby or even your own processes like Markdown and others. Let's also look at the API documentation. Currently, Nanoc is in version 3.4, so make sure when you use the API documentation, you use the 3.4 version as of today, according to the recording date. Alright, and lastly, since Nanoc is built on the Ruby programming language, I also highly recommend you to go through a tutorial if you do not know Ruby. I particularly like Learn Ruby the Hard Way by Zed Shah because he goes through extensively with 50 or more exercises for us to learn about Ruby programming language. Alright, so let's get started on building a blog using Nanoc, a static site generator. So firstly, I'll come back to my terminal and make sure I'm in the desktop, and obviously my desktop is completely empty. Now before we go ahead and build a static website, we have to first ensure that we have about 5 things already installed in our system. The very first one is of course Ruby, and therefore we check that we do have Ruby installed. The second one is Ruby Gems, so we can also check whether we have Ruby Gems, which is a package manager installed, so I have it installed as well. Thirdly, we of course have to install a Nanoc, so gem install a Nanoc, and that will use the Ruby gem to install a Nanoc in your system. Now I already have done that, so if you want to run through gem install Nanoc, and after you have done that, you can easily check whether you have Nanoc with Nanoc -- version. So as I explained earlier, the current version is 3.4.2 Nanoc. Now during the course of building our little blog, we will be using Markdown to create the HTML pages, and it is a markup language that basically creates HTML for you and allows us to write our blog post in a very clean manner. And to ensure that we can do it via Markdown, we'll use this gem called Cramdown. And I have also already installed it, so let's just check out the version. So there you go, I already have gem Cramdown installed. And lastly, we will ensure that we have ADSF, which allows us to preview any site in a directory with a web server. So in order to do that, we'll once again do gem install ADSF, and after we do that, we can easily check whether ADSF is installed. So I will go ahead and do a gem list so that I can see what are the gems installed, and there you go, I do have ADSF as well in version 1.1.1. So as you can see, now I have all the 5 things installed, so we are basically ready to create our Nanoc site. So I'm on my desktop, and to create Nanoc folder with auto-generated files and folders, I'll just do Nanoc and then create _ site, and then the site name. For us it will be blog, and after that I will immediately cd inside the blog. So let's check out what are the files and folders generated, and if I do an overview of the folder, there you have it. So let me just open this up in Sublime Text. And over here you see that I have the content folder. Inside that I have index.html, style.css, and then there are layouts, library. This is something really interesting because over here we can insert our own defined Ruby functions and methods, and you can really customize your website in this way. Now output is the folder that will auto-generate the HTML and static pages for us to view our web page. Config.yml are from general configurations for our website, and rules will basically define the compilation. For example, if you want a particular file to be compiled via the filter markdown, and also it defines the routing. Alright, so that is a very simple structure of our site. Now after this, we will just go ahead and do Nanoc compile. So let me come back to my terminal and I'll do Nanoc compile. Notice what will happen. Aha, so it gives us an error. Runtime error, could not read the ASCII 8-bit. In this case, what we will do is we'll go back to our configuration file, and just before line 53 we will insert this config. So let's go ahead and add that. Right, that looks good, and let us run the Nanoc compile again. And there you have it. It will, as I said, under the folder output, it will create index.html and style.css. Why don't we go ahead and view this? So in order to view it, we will have the command nanoc view. And this will enable us to observe our website through the localhost port 3000. So once we go to localhost port 3000, we should be able to, and there you go, we see the Nanoc website. This comes in via default. So let's go ahead and look at what's inside here. Under layouts default, this is the site that you can see, and you have yield, which basically goes on to index.html, the title and the home, and so on and so forth. For the home page that you see right here, we have some content, a brand new Nanoc site, and some paragraphs over here. Why don't we first go ahead and change it? And over here, I'll just write it as my blog. And how do you do it? You will first have to quit the Nanoc view, and then I will compile once again, Nanoc compile and Nanoc view. Now if I go to my website and refresh, you will see that my heading is changed. So basically this will give us an idea on how to go around the different files. Next, we will look at this little dash that we see right at the top. This is a metadata that is associated with this page. So over here, let's say instead of home, I put in blog. If we come back to our layout page, default.html, over here you will see that they are referring to item and then the title. This is exactly where our title information on the index.html will be seen. So now if I save it and then I go to the terminal and do Nanoc compile and Nanoc view and refresh our page and look at the title tag, we will see that it is now blog. Why don't we go ahead and change it slightly? Let's say over here I include my new blog, and save the changes and come back to our terminal, and we will see that our title has been updated to my new blog. So this is how we can also edit some metadata as well as content on our page. Now we will create some more blog posts for our little blog. Now before we do that, we'll come back to this rules file once again and take a look. Over here we define some compile as well as some routing files. Over here I will now paste in some code here, or rather edit this to indicate that we'll be using cram down for our preprocessor filter so that we can write our files in Markdown. So now that we have ensured that we have crammed down, let's go ahead to our defaults file and create a partial. Now one of the good things about having control over what we code is that we can really customize it. So for example, we have this little code here for Sidebar. Why don't we go ahead and transfer it to a new file so that it becomes dry coding, which is don't repeat yourself coding, and we can keep all the Sidebar code in one document. So to do that, we will first have this little code here, which will be render sidebar. And next I will copy this code into a new file under layouts and call it sidebar.html and paste in the code there. Now before we have this render function working, we will also have to include some libraries. So we will go to default.erb and include a library from Nanoc helpers like this, and make sure that we have the sidebar called. Let me just correct the typo. and it should be all fine. Now let's do a little bit of changes in our sidebar and simplify them. We definitely don't need so many links, and therefore I will just simplify it a little bit. And now it includes only 3 files, or rather 3 links, one to the about page which we are about to create, and one to my Twitter and then GitHub. Let's see how the website looks. And there you see I have only 3 links right now. So it is very good to create partials so that once we need to do some changes to the sidebar, we only need to edit one file and it will be taking effect on all the other pages. Now lastly, before we go on to creating blog posts, you must have noticed that I have been doing this Nanoc compile and then Nanoc view a lot of times. Now in Nanoc there is a command called Nanoc auto compile. So what it will do is it will detect our changes and immediately it will change without us needing to start and stop the server. So I'll just keep this tab running as Nanoc auto compile. Now coming back to the browser, I have this extension called Live Reload, and this is where I will switch it on. Now notice I have this little black color thing that is switched on. Now what happens is that the moment I come back, let's say I come back to my sidebar and I just include, for the sake of demo, 2 exclamation, I just have to come back to my web browser and I immediately see 2 exclamation. Let's say I just say my home, I just save and come back to my browser. Hey, it's immediately changed without me needing to refresh. Alright, so now let's go on to creating more blog posts. Now before I create more blog posts, I will come back to my default.rb and include 2 more helper files. One helper file is obviously linking to blogging and the other one is link to, which will help us create various links and hyperlinks across our website. Now that we have the particular blogging one, why don't we go ahead and create 4 articles for this. So we will come back to our content folder and over here let me create a new file and maybe call it as hello world, and I will paste in very simple markdown. As usual, at the top we will start with the metadata. Now this metadata will have this parameter called kind, which is an article, and then created at, and then a title which is hello world. Over here I have also written it in markdown. This will kind of translate to HTML ordered list. This will become paragraph and this will become a simple header 3 tag. So now what I'll do is I'll just go back to my browser and this time I will just go to /hello world and let's see what happens. There you have it. Because I have a Nanoc auto compile as well as live reload running, I can see this page immediately. Why don't we go ahead and create 3 more blog posts just for the sake of demo of blogging, and then we can kind of have an archive list after that. So let me go ahead and create 3 more. And there you have it. I have 4 posts, blog posts, which are ready to be viewed. The first one is hello world, and over here notice the date is 1st September. The second one is on 2nd September. The third one 3rd September, and the fourth one is 4th September. So let's go ahead and look at the first one, which is already in our browser. Hello world. The second one is called second post. So let's go ahead and look at it. There you have it. Let's look at the third one. This has the markdown, if you notice, both in bold and italics. And lastly, the fourth one. Right, so there you have all the 4 posts which are all ready and they can be viewed through the URL. Now won't it be nice if we are right on the first page and it kind of lists down all the posts sorted by date as what we generally see on a blog page. Now with Nanoc it is obviously not automatically done and we will have to do a little bit of coding for that. So let's come back to the very first page, which is default.html. And over here we will insert in some sorted list. Firstly, with the help of the metadata that we had on every post page, we will try to display the item. So over here, as you can see, we have the title as well as the created at date. So if we are looking at a page, let's say the first one, which is hello world, and over here we will immediately see that the title and the date is immediately displayed. So all we have to do is just have this in our layouts file so that it calls for the title and the created at date. Next, we will try to create a sorted list. So right after the yield function, I will try to create this sorted list, and this is how the code looks like. So we will basically call on sorted articles, and we will display them from maybe 30 articles, and then over here it will just display their titles, as well as it will hyperlink to the path of the post and then created at. So let's have a look at how this looks like. So after I have changed the metadata title on every page, now if we come back and view the page, we will see that, hey, I have the sorted article, and no matter where I go, obviously the about page is not created yet, wherever I go, which page I go, we have this list here. Now we obviously want this list to only appear on the root page and not when we are visiting each of the blog posts. So let's go ahead and create a little if-else block. So to do that, we'll come back to default.html once again, and over here I will try to add in a title meta tag for our index.html. So let me come back, and I will probably say here welcome, and let me add in an if else just before the list is rendered. Sorry, I need to end it after the UL ends, and now when I come back and refresh, there you go. So on the post pages I do not have the archive list here, but if I go to the post page, I don't see it, and on the home page I do see it. So why don't we next go ahead and change a little bit of the home page. We have lots of content here, so I'm just going to delete them away and say my blog, view the articles. And once I save it, I come back here, and there you have it, view the articles, and so far so good. Now next we will go ahead and create the about page. So it takes a very similar approach. We will go to content and create about.html, and I will just copy and paste from the title and make sure that this one has about, and it will be some content in markdown, and there you go. And now if we visit the about page, we should have the content, and yes, we do. Lastly, just to wrap up the things, it would be nice if we have a little bit of next and previous links over here as we go through each of the 4 articles. And in Nanoc, it is not done for us, but because it is so much configurable, we can write our own Ruby methods and define it right there. So I'm going to come back to library file folder under default.rb, and I'm going to paste in some next link and previous link methods. So I have 2 methods here. One is previous link, and that will basically return a link to previous, and it will go to the index and then -1, and of course the next link will be +1. So there you have it, and after this I will need to go back to my layouts folder and make sure I add them in. We would typically add this in after the yield function, and we will put in a check if else loop as well, and I will paste in this little code. So this basically says that, hey, if the metadata kind is article, only then you display the previous and the next link. Alright, if not, you will not display it. And there you have it. We have the next and the previous link, which goes through all the articles here. So we have a little blog here with the archive list on the front page. We also have some static sites such as the about page, and if we go to a post, we have the post inside with some links as well. I will also, to touch up a little bit, I'll go to my second post and add in a little picture. So the pictures in this case will usually reside under the folder assets or any folder that you like, and this is markdown syntax. So let me go ahead and create the assets folder with the picture inside. There you have it, the image is there. Lastly, for a typical blog, it would be great if we have an RSS feed, and we will be creating just that with Nanoc. So to do that, in our contents folder, we will create a file called feed.erb, which is an embedded Ruby file, and I will paste in the atom feed code. And after this, I will come back to the rules and insert in the compilation and the routing for our feeds file. So firstly, for compilation, I will add in /feed, but this time I will let it through the filter ERB, which is embedded Ruby, because it is not markdown anymore. For routing, I will let them know that, hey, it should be feed.xml. So let's come back to the browser. Since the base URL property was missing, we will add this to the config.yaml file, base URL, and for now we'll just put it at localhost. So we save everything, we come to the browser and refresh it, and now if we go to /feed.xml, it will immediately recognize that, hey, it's generating a feed, and it will, if you have the Google Chrome extension, it will either prompt you or it will show you the raw XML file. So I hope it gave you a brief overview about what is a static site generator. You really have a lot of control over what method and metadata and of course design you want to do with your site. So if you're a little bit of hackerish and want to really build it by yourself, I highly recommend you to go through a sort of static site generator. So be sure to check out similar projects that Nanoc also has, and they will actually list out loads of other similar static site generators on the documentation of Nanoc. Now, two of them that I have tried myself, one of them is Jekyll, one of the very first few static site generators. It is also very easy, also based on Ruby. And do also check out Punch, which is a very easy static site generator. I have tried it myself, and if you're new to this concept, I highly encourage you to check out the tutorial that the developer of Punch actually goes through. And after that, why should we use static site generator? Divya Manian, one of the developers, have written a blog post a few years ago, but I think it kind of points out why it is better in a way. Lack of out-of-box version control, there is no database or Drupal or PHP, no server-side coding, and seriously, there are tons of advantages. But she used Jekyll, but really static site generator is something you would want to check out if you want more control with your website. Alright, so finally, for the build link of the week, I have a little essay this week, and this essay is pretty old. It was made in 1986, and it was this speech by Richard Hamming, "You and Your Research." He was a research scientist in the Bell Labs, and he went on to speak why are there some researchers so good that they contribute and do so much in their life. If you want to read the essay, go ahead, do read it. It's very thought-provoking on building stuff. And I also found that there is this link to a little bit of summary to what Richard Hamming spoke in the speech, and there are some rules. For example, prepare your mind, work hard, brains are not enough. So do have a read at this essay, which was my own inspiration as well. Alright, so that's it for this week's Build podcast. For all other episodes, do check out build-podcast.com, and you can subscribe to the RSS feed or even go to GitHub for the show notes, or iTunes, Vimeo, and YouTube. Alright, so see you next week. Bye-bye.